Hello, and welcome to Appreciating Andor 10, 11, and 12. This will be the last Appreciating Andor before Season 2. Um, and honestly, with Andor, it's really hard for me to, really choose a favorite episode, or even, a favorite arc. Because they're so good. But I really do lean towards episode 10 being my favorite. Um, it's just so good. But episode 12 also, depending on the day, uh, might be my favorite. Um, and I do really like episode 11. Um, but episode 11 is more of just sort of connecting tissue, and so there's not as much to talk about, which is kind of a shame that episode 11 gets looked over, because you have great little moments, especially between Andor and Melchi's, where they're leaving, that scene, or uh, when Cassian finds out that his mom's dead. That's a really neat moment where he has to sort of lie to Melchi and tell him that everything's okay. Um, but I wanted to basically focus on some of the big monologues of season 1 that are in episodes 10 and 12, and they are really good, and it makes sense why they're so focused on. But so I wanted to start off with, we'll go kind of in chronological order of when they're presented in the show. But Kino's One Way Out speech, I really love. I absolutely adore Andy Serkis's performance throughout it. I love that you can tell at the beginning that he is extremely nervous, filled with doubt, and by the end of the episode, obviously you learn that he can't swim, and so he knows this whole time that he is not going to make it out. That that's just something that will not happen for him. And I think it's really neat that as he gives his speech, he sort of builds up confidence and, basically comes to the realization of, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for all these other people. This is a lot bigger than me. And some of the lines in here are just really phenomenal. Where I love that it just starts off with Kino just basically does his standard routine, where he explains, I'm the day shift manager on level 5, and then goes into, I'm speaking to you from level 8. We've turned off all the floors. You guys need to, escape. And I really love how clearly inspired by Cassian he is. The fact that he ropes in a lot of what Cassian has told him before, where he says they don't have enough guards and they know it. If we wait until they figure it out, it'll be too late. And that I would rather die trying to take them down than by giving them what they want. That's really cool. I love the inflection that Kino has, where I think this is the point where he starts to like really understand why he's doing this. Where he says, uh, "We know that they fried 100 men to keep it quiet." Like, you know, and that comes right after we know that they are making up our sentences as they go along. You know, throughout the whole arc, Kino's been very adamant about, I've only got 200 something days left. Like, you know, I don't want anything to mess with that. I am leaving. And it's really cool that it kind of like it gets under Kino's skin. It pisses him off that he's now realizing that, like, no matter what, I'm not leaving. Like, you know, they're gonna make up my sentence. They'll drag it out. Like, you know, they'll send me to another facility to go and die there. Like, you know, and he knows that he can't swim, so there really is no way out for him. But for everyone else, there's one way out. Um, I really love this speech. And like a little bit of Andy Serkis's performances, I love that the first time, uh, like, or I love that, yeah. So the first time he says that he can't swim, and tells Cassian that, he looks kind of scared because he's, you know, considering like jumping. Uh, and then Cassian sort of asks again, like, what did he say? He tells him again, I can't swim. But this time he's got kind of like a smile on his face where it's like, oh, that's kind of like, I really love that it's like, well, yeah, that's Kino realizing that, like, yeah, this all was for a purpose. You know, even if it's not for me per se, like, I did something and I made a difference, and, you know, like, I can be happy with that. It's such a neat moment. I don't know if we'll see Kino in season 2. Um, I kind of hope we do. I think there are several ways that they could take his story. Um, where like I could very easily see him being imprisoned by the Empire and like tortured, much in the similar vein as like Bix. I could also see him, you know, like gaining kind of a legend as like someone who broke out an entire like imperial prison and then killed all the guards. Like, you know, that would be kind of a neat way to have his legend spread around. Um, but I love that right after the One Way Out speech, we get Luthen's like big monologue. And one thing that I will say is kind of skipped over a lot that I really want to talk about is the sort of build up to Luthen's monologue and the brief aftermath of it, which a lot of that comes from the actor who plays Lonnie, and like he does a really good job, and I really look forward to seeing him in season 2 because he should have quite an important role in season 2. But the build up here, it starts off with, but I love how the tension builds in this scene because obviously, you know, as a first time viewer, you're unsure whether or not it's actually a trap, or like what's going on. And, you know, and so obviously Luthen wouldn't be entirely certain of, is this a trap or not. Uh, but I love that Luthen mentions, like, congratulations on your kid, and Lonnie kind of, like, gets a little freaked out by that, and he's like, whoa, like, don't you, like, don't you think about how that feels from my side? You, like, knowing everything about me constantly, or, like, always watching me. And I love that Luthen's response is, I think about you constantly. And it's like, ooh, that's really neat, because that could be reassuring, but it could also be threatening. Um, and, like, yeah, it's such a neat way where I love throughout the whole conversation that it's kind of that way. Luthen basically bluffs his way through telling him that, like, no, actually, Aldani wasn't us. Totally wasn't. Definitely not. And, like, Lonnie tries to warn him about Spellhouse and, like, what's going to happen to Krieger. And Luthen, like, already in the conversation basically tells him that, like, yeah, well, like, we can't really warn Anto Krieger, because if he does that, then, like, your position's compromised. So, like, sorry, but you're worth more than Krieger. And so it's kind of this really neat like, way that the conversation bends, where now Lonnie is trying to basically argue that, like, well, I can just leave. And I love that the way Luthen convinces him that he can't leave is by basically pointing out that, like, look, if you leave, that's going to send up flags for the ISB, and we can't have the ISB looking into you. So, like, leaving is probably your worst possible option. Um, so, like, just think of it as, like, Krieger's men are dying to make sure that, like, your kid has a father. Um, and that obviously that leads Lonnie into, like, asking, um, like, I've sacrificed, all these things. Like, what do you sacrifice? And I love that Luthen's speech, while it's a really good monologue on its own, and it really sums up Luthen as a character, the lengths that he's willing to go um, to sort of be this behind the scenes guy who, like, slowly but surely puts together the Rebel Alliance and pushes their cause forward. Um, I love the fact that it's basically Luthen listing out a whole bunch of things that Lonnie has because of Luthen. That he's like, yeah, basically, if you step away, like, uh, kindness, kinship, love, like, these are all things that are just going to go away for you. And it's like, these are things I'm sacrificing so that you can have them. And so, Luthen, of course, ends it with, so what do I sacrifice? Everything. And I love the reaction on Lonnie's face, where, like, he is trying to take in everything that Luthen has said, but he's also just, like, terrified completely, because, like, that is the situation. Luthen has basically told him, well, and he says it very clearly, you're stuck. There's no pleasure in saying it, but you're not going anywhere. Um, it's just sort of this, like, grim reality of, yep, like, there is really no choice for Lonnie. It's like, do you throw away, yourself and your family for what? Like, a little perception of, this like little dream of, well, we can just go live a separate life. Like, I don't have to deal with any of these like hard things that I have to work through. It's like, yeah, that's not gonna work. So you're trapped, Lonnie. Um, and yeah, it's such a phenomenal scene and monologue. And I do like that they sort of casually drop in like dates and stuff where so Luthen has been doing this since the Empire like took over. Um, that like he figured this out basically all the way back then that like, yeah, we're gonna have to start a rebellion to get rid of the Empire. Meanwhile, Lonnie has been working his way through the ISB for the past 6 years. And so I love that that's part of Luthen's speech to Lonnie is basically saying, hey, so I've been doing this way longer than you have, so don't try and tell me what you've sacrificed. Like, I sacrificed way more than you, and I kind of need you to keep going. And like, I do love the idea that as part of Luthen's speech, he says the line, um, like, I work for a sunrise that I know I'll never see. And it's really cool that Luthen himself acknowledges that, well, yeah, no matter what, like, even if they win and they defeat the Empire, I mean, Luthen's not going to be hailed as a hero, right? Like, when it comes out that, oh, he did stuff like Aldhani, which caused the Empire to crack down, if Mon Mothma ever let it leak to the New Republic that, she told him, like, people will suffer, and his response was, that's the plan. But it's like, yeah, I don't think the New Republic's gonna really find a place in society for Luthen. Like, that's kind of one of those people where it's like, no, you're probably like, don't get me wrong, you were very useful and instrumental in like the rebellion, but we can't have you like, we can't hope to run a society if you're just going to try and like topple whatever government we come up with. So I love the fact that Luthen basically just acknowledges that, like, yeah, I'm not making it out of this, period. Like, it really doesn't matter how this resolves, whether the Empire wins or the Rebellion. I'm not going to be able to live, like, another life. This is it for me. Yeah, that's so cool. And so then from there, I kind of want to just jump over to episode 12. And as much as I love Nemec's manifesto, I really want to talk about Marva's speech. And I kind of want to talk about her other speech, the one that I don't think gets mentioned too often, because it is brief and it's very much overshadowed by her speech that she gives at the end. But her speech that she gives through Brazo, I think, is very much worth discussing, where Brazo recites it from what Marva would have told him, as tell him that he knows everything he needs to know and feels everything he needs to feel. And when the day comes and those two pull together, he will be an unstoppable force for good. Tell him that I love him more than anything he could ever do wrong. And, it's very short and to the point, but I really love it, especially as a continuation of that last conversation they had in episode 7, where it's essentially the ultimate forgiveness that a parent could ever give. Um, where like even though she knew that she was dying, and did want that to happen, uh, she wanted Cassian to understand that like she forgave him, and that ultimately, as much as she believes in the rebellion and she couldn't leave with him because of that at the end of the day, like, he is essentially her kid. Um, that, like, that's what matters, that she did love him. And, like, that's kind of the most important thing. And I really love it. It's a great little, like, continuation off of episode 7. Um, and it's a great little bow tie on a loose end. Um, and then, of course, I want to talk about Marva's big speech that she gives, because as much as I really love Kino and Luthen's speeches, I do think that Marva's is kind of my favorite. Um, and so we'll just go through that. She opens by talking about her childhood on Ferrix, and how she remembers all the different times that they would do this march and hear their music, feel their history, and that the dead would lift her with their truth, and that she seeks to inspire Ferrix so that it can continue. Um, and then she says, "But I fear for you. We've been sleeping. We had each other and Ferrix, our work, our days. We had each other and they left us alone. We kept the trade lanes open and they left us alone. We took their money and ignored them. We kept their engines churning, and the moment they pulled away, we forgot them. Because we had each other, because we had Ferrix. But we've been sleeping. I've been sleeping, and I've been turning away from the truth I wanted not to face. There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy." I love that this is where, because Marva's speech just sort of slowly keeps taking a more aggressive, like, turn towards the Empire. And I love that this specifically is where we start to get Luthen's reaction. Because that's one of the, like, most powerful things about Marva's speech, is the fact that just about all of the characters from the show are there to witness it, and we get reactions from just about all the characters in the show. And so, we get the pack boy, like, he's kind of tearing up and, like, really feeling inspired by what Marva's saying. And, like, Luthen kind of initially is starting to, like, realize, like, what she's saying. Like, he's kind of looking around like, holy crap, is this actually happening? Like, what's going to happen? Are all these people going to feel the same way that I am? Or, is she, like, basically talking to the wind? And like, I love that throughout the speech, Luthen kind of begins to have a bit of a smile when he realizes that, like, she's saying exactly what he would want to say, which is, there is a darkness reaching like rust into everything, um, We let it grow, and now it's here. And it's not visiting anymore. And now it wants to stay. The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. It is never more alive than when we sleep. It's easy for the dead to tell you to fight. And maybe it's true, maybe fighting's useless. But I'll tell you this: if I could do it again, I'd wake up early and be fighting these bastards from the start. Fight the Empire. Um, I really love that it is just this call to action that, causes everything to erupt, be chaotic. I know that originally they did plan for it to be fuck the Empire. Um, and like you can see behind the scenes footage of Fiona Shaw like recording it as fuck the Empire. And apparently that was a Bob Iger decision that no, it needed to be changed to fight the Empire, which I'm gonna give it to Bob. You gotta take them down when they do something wrong, but hold them up when they did something right. And fight the Empire is way better than fuck the Empire. Um, and I really do love that we get to see Brazo and Wilman Pack like sort of looking at each other, realizing sort of like what's about to happen, and that like they are being called to action. I really wonder in season 2 if Cyril or like Dedra are going to comment on the speech, because it's one of those things where I could really see it it will very much inspire the rebels, but I could also see it very much inspiring the Imperial side of like, no, this is what they think, like we tried to restore order after like a murderer like ran away, and they're like pre-more security, they weren't doing their job, and we tried to give them order, and this is how they thank us, and I could see them becoming sort of even more radicalized like that. uh, but I really love it. I love what a strong like metaphor it is. Um, like it's one of those things where I really like that Andor, and I mean Tony Gilroy has said as much. It takes the Star Wars universe pretty much more seriously than anyone like ever has, um, and I really love the idea of that. It's not that Andor doesn't have fun along the way. It most certainly does, but it's really neat to have it be taken seriously, and not to be told, oh well, shut up, like it doesn't make sense, like who cares? It's like I care, like a lot of people do care, and so it's really nice to have Andor be taken this seriously, that this level of quality writing was actually used on Andor, as well as quality set design, quality acting, quality score and music, absolutely. Um, but yeah, I really appreciate Andor. If you haven't been able to tell over these past 4 editions of appreciating Andor, I really like it, and I am super hyped for season 2. It could be a disappointment, but with everything that Tony Gilroy has said talking about the show, I really doubt it's going to be bad. So, um, yeah, it comes out on the 22nd. I have a sneaking suspicion that it'll come out the 21st. They've been doing that with a lot of the Star Wars shows where they'll put them out a day earlier than they announced. Like they most recently did that with Skeleton Crew. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just say, hey, Easter Monday, well, you know what? Like, let's release Andor early. But either way, I'll be there, and I hope that you will be as well. And thank you so much for watching this, and I guess I'll see you next time. Yeah, I guess eventually I'll probably do Appreciating Andor for season 2, but I don't know when that will be. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching, and bye bye.
I hope that the fans feel that we've treated this really with respect.